Hi guys, it's me, Dr. Samina Rahman. Thanks for joining me back here again for Gyno Girl TV. Today I want to talk about an important topic that's come up in the office a lot, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to discuss with you guys about menopause and some basics about menopause and really some just basics about hormone replacement therapy. And I'll get deeper into this discussion in subsequent videos. But because it's come up a lot, I want to discuss this with you today, just to destigmatize it a little bit. I've had a lot of patients in their mid-40s coming in the last few weeks, like freaking out because they've missed a cycle, or they're having other weird symptoms, and they're like, "Oh my God, am I going through menopause?" So menopause itself, I think, brings a lot of mixed emotions for women. On the one hand, it's exciting to not think about bleeding and possible pregnancies. On the other hand, it's this transition in life that can affect your whole body, which we'll talk about. And so a lot of women are deeply affected by the possibility of what that means for them and their quality of life. Important thing I want to emphasize is when you are having some of the symptoms that we've discussed and it's becoming bothersome, then you really need to get in there and try to find a provider that can help you. And I would recommend looking at the North American Menopause Society. They have a lot of certified menopause providers, which I am one, and can help you kind of navigate this period of time in your life. So if we think about sort of the menopausal transition, first of all, just remember that, if you didn't already know that when babies are in their mommy's tummy, they're born with that by 20 weeks, they have every egg that they're going to have their entire life. And from that point on, we'll subsequently start losing those eggs. And finally, when you have your final ovulation or final egg release, you kind of get to that transition of when, you won't menstruate anymore, because we can talk about some basics on menstruation, but obviously the whole cycle of menstruation is around ovulation and attempted pregnancy. So what happens to a lot of women is in their mid-40s, they'll start having a shorter, like the first part of the cycle is called the follicular phase, and they start having a shorter follicular phase. So, maybe the interval between their periods might decrease. Instead of having 28-day cycles, they might have 25 or 23-day cycles. So there's a lot of transitions that occurs, starting in their 40s. By the time you get 45, that transition, may be even more dramatic. And average age of what we call perimenopause, where you might have the irregular cycles plus some actual symptoms, systemic symptoms of menopause, is around 47. And the average age of menopause itself is 51. But, that period before can be, 5 to 7 years before that. So it's important to kind of identify some of these things so that, when it happens to you, you'll know if and when you should go seek help. They say that by 2025, I read in a study that 1.1 billion women will be in menopause or in menopausal age. So that's a lot of women. And what we're seeing now, I think, are a lot of, role models of older women who are doing amazing things, looking their best, feeling their best. So, I hope to empower you so that when this happens for you or someone you love, then you'll be able to do the same and empower yourself, try to feel the best and look the best that you've ever felt. So what I wanted to talk about is like I said, the average age is 51 for women going into menopause. And the transition from that period of time, like I said, can be 5 to 7 years depending on what study you read. But for most women, the first sort of signs of menopause are irregular cycles. Additionally, you can have some symptoms because it can affect you from head to toe. So menopause can affect your cognition. You might start feeling like you can't remember things. You might actually start feeling some signs or symptoms of depression, where you don't feel your best mood all the time, or you don't have energy to do things, or you actually just have no desire. So there's all these things that can be affected, at the level of the brain. And then, downward from that, you have vasomotor symptoms. So 80% of women experience hot flashes. Interestingly enough, only 30% will come and seek help for it. So hot flashes and night sweats are sort of the hallmark of what we think of menopause, other than, actual cessation of your menstruation. So menopause can kind of affect everything from, your brain, cognition, your mood, depression. It can affect your skin. There's changes in collagen that can happen. Your vision can be affected. Obviously, with the skin changes, we know with the lack of collagen, more wrinkling develops, which none of us want. Let's be honest. You can have also some changes in your bone density, so you can have more of ability to break your bones, which can be very dramatic later in life. Additionally, there's changes that happen in the genital urinary system. So we call this genital urinary syndrome menopause, which I'll have a discussion about separately, but it can entail vaginal dryness, pain with sex. I have a colleague, Dr. Lauren Stryker, she refers to it as sandpaper sex, because that's how it feels when the vagina becomes so dry. And you can have urinary urgency and frequency, and sometimes frequent UTIs. That's related to the lack of estrogen that affects the bladder. The lack of estrogen in the vagina can also cause some architectural changes in the vulva and vagina. You can have sort of a shortening of the vagina, or dryness, changes in the pH of the vagina. So there's a lot of symptoms: vaginal itching, vaginal discomfort in general. And there are a lot of remedies, which we'll discuss in a later video. But what I wanted to say is that, these changes are all related to hormones, right? So when you have these fluctuations initially in perimenopause, you have a lot of fluctuations in your hormones, including your FSH, AMH, and your estrogen levels. Finally, when menopause hits, like I said, the final menstrual period, average age is 51, and it's really 12 consecutive cycles of not menstruating in that age range, along with some potential menopausal symptoms. What happens is you have, a decline in estrogen, a decline in progesterone, a decline in testosterone, and all of these are important for excellent functioning of your reproductive health, obviously sexual health. Libido changes can occur, as well as, like I said, dramatic changes in the vulva and vagina that can lead to pain with sex. Also, estrogen has always been considered somewhat cardioprotective for people, because cardiac disease goes up in women after menopause, and that may be related to the changes in cholesterol or triglycerides that can develop. And so there are a lot of sort of systemic things that can happen to women, which we need to be aware of. And the key is finding the right help when you need it. So this Women's Health Initiative that came out around 20 years ago, had a lot of buzz around it, and there were, lots of marketing that was done around it, and it basically stops doctors and providers from prescribing hormone replacement therapy because of the fear of breast cancer, which at that time, initial analysis of the results demonstrated that there was an increase in breast cancer risk for women. Now, just to remind you that cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer in women, and breast cancer, in a lifetime, there's about a 12% risk for most women. So 1 in 8 women can get diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And so, looking at this initial results, there was a lot of buzz about, stopping hormone replacement therapy. And that's what people did. They stopped it cold turkey. They stopped women over the years. And what we found is through new data, new analysis, that information was wrong. It was wrong that there isn't actually an increased risk in breast cancer above what your baseline may be, and there was just a lot of misinformation that continues to be spread about hormone replacement therapy. And actually, what we found is that hormone replacement therapy in the form of estrogen, if you don't have a uterus, and estrogen, progesterone, if you have one, is important. And the best treatment for women with hot flashes and vasomotor symptoms. It can help with bone health. It can also potentially help to decrease your risk of heart disease and stroke. It can help to decrease your risk of, cognitive disorders, may help mood disorders. And it can actually, for some women, even help them live longer lives. And so while I'm not advocating that every woman go on hormone replacement therapy, it really is a discussion between yourself and your doctor, and based on your medical and family history. I do want to say that the initial studies on them were actually we have been refuted now. And so we should look at the latest evidence-based data to help with our patients. And what we found is that it's all about timing. Timing is everything. So most studies show that if you start hormone replacement therapy within the first 10 years of menopause, like between age 50, 59-ish, that it can actually be beneficial to you in multiple ways. You can, like I said, it can potentially improve cognition. It can potentially help with the mood, vasomotor symptoms for sure, even genital urinary syndrome, menopause, although sometimes you still need the local therapy on top of the systemic therapy, depending on how bad your condition is. But in general, the timing is the most critical factor, and the type of hormone that you take, whether or not it's oral, transdermal, and we'll have a discussion on that in the next series. But I wanted just to say that it's not as taboo or dangerous as we once suspected, and in fact, some studies demonstrated that women's life expectancy who have been taken off the hormone replacement therapy went down. But I'm in no way advocating that women in their 70s or 20 years out from menopause should start it, or we should start it to help with cardiac health or preventative reasons. But for active vasomotor symptoms, for some genital urinary syndrome or menopause, and for potentially and potentially bone health, other things, we know that it is helpful and beneficial, and particularly when you start it at the right period of time, within the first 10 years. Again, this is a discussion that you should have with your doctor, your provider that you are comfortable with, or that you feel like knows about menopause, the menopausal transition, and feels comfortable discussing it with you as well. And so I'm going to do a segment on genital urinary syndrome, menopause, and different types of hormone replacement therapy. So please look out for that. And thank you for joining me today. Please like and subscribe to my channel. It's pretty new still. This is only number 2 for me coming out with this video. So I appreciate your support. Thanks so much.